be OOPS fundamentals. So this is the very basics, right? What is OOPS programming? Even if somebody knows Python, right? I think Python is also a OOPS oriented language, right? So this is, you can say that you will find some similarities, but this OOPS fundamental is from Java perspective. There are slightly changes, right? So this is from the total perspective of Java. All the syntax which I will tell you, everything is from the perspective of Java. Okay, so what we are going to cover today? So I will cover is overview of the OOPS. What is OOPS? Objects, classes, pillars of OOPS. This is very important from the learning perspective. Base plus your interview question. I'll tell you what kind of interview questions generally happened on this one, right? So, but remember that this is the most important question. Then we have relationship. So as you might already know that low level design, right? Low level design has basics. You should have OOPS knowledge. So it's all about has a relationship, right? So you can say that it's a fundamental of everything, whether you learn Java, right? And whether you go through an object oriented principles and all these things. So this is the base class for all. So let's move to this thing, OOPS overview. So as everybody knows that OOPS stand for object oriented programming. As the name itself says that it's orient toward what? Objects. So everything you have to think from an object perspective. If let's say you get any project, hey, can you design this? Hey, let's say after you joining the industry, you get any project. So all you have to understand is like what are all the objects present in whatever task you are doing. That's why it is called objects oriented. Everything revolves around objects. So what does it objects now? When we say that everything objects revolves around objects, so when we say what does it objects means, it's a real world entity like car, bike, ATM, anything. And when you say that real world entity, you can ask me a question, right? Hey Shrayansh, what does it mean by real world entity, right? So see, any real world entity has two things. And if there is any doubt, please stop me and ask the question, guys. So every real world entity has two things, right? So what does this two things it has? So one you have is, you know that we have called behavior. One is called behavior and another is called functionality. So every object has two things. One is what is your behavior. Behavior we also known as functionality, and another thing it is called properties, right? So any object has two things. I will tell you about this when we will go about the objects, but understand this, when you will consider any real world entity which has these two things, they are known as real world entity, and we will go more detail into this, how you will identify objects. So those who are coming from C background, right, they know that it is a procedural programming, right? Now when we are talking about OOPS, so this is generally the difference between procedural programming. So you can say that all the advantages of objects generally which are missing in procedural. So here procedural, what does procedural happen? So you get one task. So let's say Piyush got task 1. So what Piyush will do is, it will create function 1. It will add some task. Function 2, add some task. And if it want to pass some data, it will pass some data here. And it will complete everything. So it just divided into parts called functions, and it will pass the data, whatever is required from one function to another, right? So that is generally a procedural programming, just functions, right? It does not provide a proper way to hide data. So it send the data. This can also change it, right? So they are very tight coupled. So what is this thing is, they are very tight coupled. When I say tight coupled, what does tight coupled means? So you have one function which creates the object, let's say, or you can say that creates a variable, right? And you pass that reference to another, or you pass that variable to another. So that objects or whatever that variable you have created, it's moving around one function to another, and what other functions are doing with it, it is changing it and then using it. function, those who created it, they doesn't have any information about it, right? So they are very tight coupled because they are freely passing the data. There is no way to hide the data, right? So what I say that it give importance to function over data. Procedural programming give importance to function. It just focus on creating a function, but it doesn't focus on the data, and data moves freely from one function to another, from another function to another, right? And anybody can change it, no control over that, right? So these are some of the advantages of OOPS: overloading, inheritance, which is missing in procedural, right? Code reusability not present. I will tell you how we can achieve in OOPS, but in one liner you should be understand what is procedural. Procedural focus on functions, not on data. OOPS, the biggest thing is it provide data hiding. What it will do is it will bind your function and data. So this function will work on this data, right? And it will bind it together so that it has the full control over it. Who is going to manipulate it? They know that, okay, this function is going to manipulate this data. If you want this data, it will write another function. Hey, you call this function and you will get the data. So this class has the full control. So that's why it says that object provide data hiding, give importance to data, and in procedural it give importance to function. It's a very basic as of now, but you will get understand of this when I say that how it hide and all, you will learn it. But till now it's clear, right? What is procedural and OOPS? So sometimes the difference they may ask also. Okay, so now let's move ahead. Very basic. Our first thing is objects and classes. What is objects and what is classes? I told you that objects are the real world entity which has two things. कौन सी? Properties and behavior. Behavior is also known as function, and the properties is known as state. So example, see this example. So here if you see that dog is an object. Why dog is an object? Because it has just two properties. One is properties or state. So anything, if you look and tell what all are, hey, its color is black, hey, its height is at least this. So any properties of any real world entity you can tell by just looking at it, right? These are known as properties or state. Like, okay, if the dog is there, at least you can tell what is its color, what is its breed, age. Might be you can approx, let's say, okay, 6 years, it's a younger or it's an older dog. So these are known as properties which you can just tell by observing that object, right? So if you can give some properties of a real world entity just by observing, those are known as properties or state. What are the second thing object has is behavior or function. So what are the behavior of a dog? Behavior of a dog is bark, sleep, eat, etc. So these are the functions which dogs perform, right? So that's why dog is considered as object, because we can have these two things inside an object, right? Properties which we can like tell by just looking, and the behavior which the functionality it performs. Similarly, if I tell you car is an object. Why car is an object? Because it has two things. First thing is all the properties which we can tell by just looking at this, like what? Okay, what is the brand, what is the type, what is the color? So these are all considered as its properties, right? And what is the behavior? Apply brake, drive, increase speed, etc. These are all the functionalities. So you got it? So object has, every object should have these two things. Or I won't say that should, it should be must have these two things. Okay, that's where we will call as an object. Now you can ask me, hey Shrayansh, what is class then? So class is like, it's a blueprint. It's a blueprint of an object. It's a blueprint of an object, or you can say that a skeleton, right? So I told you that object has these two things. So where we will write these two things? So in class, you write these two things and create an object out of it, right? So I'll tell you how. To create an object, a class is required, right? So from class, object can be created. So class is considered as a blueprint or template which from which objects can be created. So let's say I have a class A. I will write its properties. And I will write its behavior. And you know, right? Object has two things. So properties and behavior. I'll define it here in the class. So that's why class is known as template, right? Now we can create an object out of it. And we can create as many as object 1, object 2. I will tell you how. But from this class I can create so many objects. So let's understand the definition of classes. Classes provide the template or the blueprint from which object can be created. From one class we can create multiple objects. And what is the keyword for the creating a class is this one, small. So now let's see, I'll tell you how to create it. Let's create one normal simple class. Let's say I'm creating a class. Let's say I'm creating a class student. So what are the properties of a student? Can you tell me, like, what are the properties of a student? Right, properties is, let's say, age of an student, right? And we can also tell it's like, okay, this is the properties. Let's say it's an age, address, or I would say that it's a instead of integer it should be string, right? There should be a string, its address. These are all the student properties, identification, age, address, right? So there could be many. So these are known as data variables. So all the properties of a student is known as data variables. Now what are the functionalities of a student, right? So the functionalities of a student could be what it's perform. Let's say I can have functionalities update address. So functionality is like a function. So this is one function where what its function task is to update the address. So let's say today this student lives in a certain area, let's say anything in Jaipur, Rajasthan, but now it's shifted to another state. So we can update this. So update address is just a function or behavior which works on this data. So this method, so this is known as data method. So data methods, or which we earlier calling functions, work on data variables. So any modification, any you want to get and all, you can use through the function. So let's say if anybody wants this, I want an age. So you can have like here getter and setter. So you can have like get age. And what it will do is it will return age. So right, so we can write any function. These are all known as data methods which will work on this ultimately this data variables which is known as properties, right? So you understand this is a class. So class has two things, data variables which is nothing but a properties, and the functions which is nothing but a method, and method works on a data variables. Okay, now I told you that objects can be created out of it, right? So objects can be created like now how the objects will be created. See this. So class name student, right? Let's say I'm wanting to create an engineering student. So I'll create, let's say, engineering student equals to new class name student, right? So here if you see that I don't go much into this syntax as of now. I'll tell you a syntax, but I want to tell you from this class we can create so many objects. So here if you see that this is the one way of creating an object, which I will tell you in deep maybe in the next session. So here if you see that with this new keyword, this is a keyword, right? So with this new keyword I created a new object. I created an engineering student. Similarly, from this one I can create, let's say, MBA student. MBA student equals to new student. New student. So this is MBA student. Similarly, I can say that another CA student, CS student. So if you see that just from this class I created so many students, right? And even if you take that in a one class itself there are 100 of students, so you can say that student 1, student 2, student 3, and just change age, address and all these things, right? So each student has their own properties, right? So here if you see that what will, so now I created two objects, engineering student, MBA student, out of which new student, this class, right? So how it would be? So it, let's say this is object 1, which is engineering student. Engineering student. So it has its own properties. Like what is that? Age. So let's say age. So let's say it set its property like age dot set. Like I have a get, right? I can also put one set method, set age. And in the set age I can set this, like let's say put a set age and address. So it has its own value. Let's say it here age its set is 23, address its set is something XYZ, and it has its all method also, update address, get age, set age, or whatever. So this object which we created has all the data variables and data methods, and it can have its own values. Similarly, the other object which we created, MBA student. MBA student also we created from the same class, new student, right? So it also has the same data variables, data methods. So it also has age. Maybe it can add its own age. Let's say it's at 25, and its own address, right? Maybe it's set ABC, something, right? And its own data variables, update address, get age, set age. So if you see that each object, each object has both data variables, data methods, and they can have set their own values, whichever they want. Till now it's clear or not what is class, what is object. So now we are done with classes and objects. Now let's move forward to the first pillar of OOPS. And till now don't worry about anything like all the keywords, new keyword, class, we will come more in depth. But classes and object is important to tell because I need to need those into this explaining the 4 pillar of OOPS. So now understand what is the question comes in an interview, right? This is not just a base of OOPS but also a very popular interview question. The question generally comes is, can you explain the OOPS fundamental like you are explaining to a 14-year-old child? So you should be clear with the OOPS fundamental in such a clarity that you should come up with a very simple example which a child can understand. Don't use any jargons, right? So understand it properly and see that you are relating with the real world examples. If interview says that, hey, come up with some certain examples, explain me, that even a child can understand, right? So let's see with that. So I'll try to explain in that manner and see that if it helps, and you can come up with different examples of this one. So first pillar of OOPS, what is known as data abstraction. Data abstraction, इसको कैसे समझो data abstraction को? Suppose that I'll come to the definition second. First understand with an example. Take an example of a car and you have a brake pedal, and if you press the brake pedal, what will happen? The car speed will reduce. But how it reduced? Did you know that internally what it happened? You don't know it. because this is abstracted to us. We all care about what we have to do. How it happened, that's not important to us. So that's why the definition says that it hides the internal implementation and shows only the essential functionality to the user. So it shows only the essential functionality. What is the essential functionality in terms of car? Brake pedal. Press me. If I press it, the car speed will reduce. But how? Internal implementation is hidden. I don't know. Let's say another example, cell phone. How call is made, you don't know. You just say that, okay, once you dial the number and press green button, a call has been made. But how call has been made, do you know that? No, it's abstracted to us. We don't know how the data transfer to one and another. We don't know how it transfer to the network, how it reach to the other person. We don't know. We all know is if you press the green button after dialing the number, the call will be made. So we only know the essential feature which is given to us, but all the internal implementation is hidden from us. So this is known as abstraction. And how we can achieve it? Through interface and abstract classes. You will get this more detail into the next chapter where we deep more into this, but I will give you a quick highlight of this interface, right? But more in depth will come into the next session where we'll go one level deeper. So as a part of the first pillar, data abstraction, you should know that what data abstraction is. Data abstraction is like only exposing the essential feature and hide the implementation. What are the advantage of data abstraction? Advantage of data abstraction is security and confidentiality. So let's take this example. So guys, don't go much about the keywords and in depth. We will go slowly in depth. But see, I'm just telling you how we can achieve this data abstraction. So I told you that it can be achieved through interface and abstraction. So I'm creating an interface. So let's say I created an interface, let's say car. Okay. So this is an interface I created. A car has so many features which has, but I want to expose, let's say, I can create public apply brake. This is the method I want to expose, right? But user not aware, like, okay, if I apply the brake of a car, what will happen? I don't know. So all its implementation I can put it is like here. So here I can create a class. I'll tell you about this. Don't worry about this. What happening? I all want you to focus in data abstraction. How we are doing a data abstraction. Understand those interface and the keyword which you are seeing. Little bit keep it aside. Just see. Keep in your back of the mind. When we use it, you will see. Oh, yes, I saw that somewhere, right? So now let's say I will say that car implementation. So all the interface, right? It just provide a like method. We have to implement it like where. So it has to implement this interface car. And what it will do is all the methods it will now implement it. So public apply brake. Now even for user it is just simple apply brake, but here it is doing so many things. When we apply the brake, it will do so many things. Say do step 1, do step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and then ultimately speed got reduced. The outcome of this is that speed got reduced, right? So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, because there might be so many engine work, tools work, we don't know inside what car happened. But what my intention is to tell you that user don't know this functionality. All user we told this as, okay, for car you have apply brake, or you can have one more thing, that press, you can say that press accelerator. So user know that if I press it, speed will increase, or you can say that press horn button. So I just expose what user is required in a car. I all expose this. So now user has a car object. It can apply brake, press accelerator, press horn, turn on the headlights, all these things it can do, but the implementation I am hiding it from it. So right, when he just call this method, press apply break, internally it's doing step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, and ultimately the outcome is speed got reduced. So you know that, so from a user perspective, it's just calling this method apply break, and this all implementation is hidden. How it will happening, he doesn't know, he's just applying the break. So that's why it is called as data abstraction. So this is the first pillar. Understood? Any doubts? Shall I proceed?
Hey Shrayansh,
Yeah.
one doubt here.
Yeah.
So you are saying like we are able to hide some functionality from user.
Huh.
So my question is, what is the need? Why are we doing that? Even if we tell them how to apply break, it won't cause any harm, right? Like what is the issue here? Like if we not hide, like what is the importance if we don't hide it?
No, yeah. So see, this is the importance is like the advantage, I would say that. The first thing is bring is confidentiality. So let's say a car has so many features which, let's say you are not, I don't want to expose it to you. So let's say I am the one who created this car, and I only want you this three features: apply brake, press accelerator, and press horn. I only want to expose you this three items only, but rest of the things I don't want to expose itself, right? So if you see that through the interface, I only this put this three methods. Now as a user, you can only call this three methods only. So one of the reason for this data hiding is confidentiality, like you can not add or expose to the user which he doesn't bother, first thing, right? Let's say there is so many features which can a mechanic can do directly, like, but I don't want to expose it to user. So one thing is confidentiality. You can hide the functionalities from the user with the help of the interface. You don't add it here, user won't be able to interact with it, right? So this is the first advantage. So are you okay with this first advantage? Like you are in line with me?
Yeah, what I'm not understanding is like what will happen if we expose? Like what breach will happen in that case?
Okay.
Like if suppose someone is trying to see our internal methods,
Yeah.
what we have
Okay.
written.
So the another is things like, see, if you are exposing this thing, right, there are a lot of thing is client should be now aware of all those things, right? So now let's say if you are, let's say, let's talk from that perspective that we are exposing this method to all, like everyone now can call directly this one, and they're well aware of this method. Okay, if break applies, let's say this is my client, this is your client class, like say you are the client class and you want to apply a break. When you want to apply a break, earlier what you were calling is you were calling this apply break, and break used to apply. Now when we say that, okay, let's user know the functionality, user let it, so now you can say that, hey, user know about what to do, step 1, step 2, step 3. So now user has aware of this steps also. Do we want to expose this steps to the user? No, because how the internal, what are you can say that internal mechanics or engineering terms, how this internal tools interacted between steps, or I'm just coming up hypothetically that these are the steps is, let's say, less, step 1 is less battery use. This is the step 1. I'm just hypothetically because I don't know what's the functionality. So first step is, let's say, less battery use, and when less battery use, something will happen. So less is that stop petrol or diesel usage. So suddenly it will stop using it, so that in something will stop. So now you know that there are multiple steps when somebody apply a brake, right? So I don't want user to know all these things. Another thing is, if you don't want, if you are saying that what are the disadvantage of it, like if we expose it, then user has to know so much things and it will get bombarded with the information. It's just one thing, when you apply a break, you have to do all this stuffs, 10 stuffs. So now user knows all this 10 stuff even though he doesn't care about it, right? So what we do is we make our code simplified with this data hiding. So we will tell only to client, this is only one method, apply a break. If you apply it, car will stop. How will it stop? You don't have to worry about it, leave it to me. But if you say that, okay, what's the disadvantage if user knows all these things, then another thing is client will get bombarded with, okay, I have to know about step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, right? And this thing will happen.
Yeah. Also, they can mess up with our internal implementation, how we have implemented.
Yes.
If
So
they know.
correct. So it's like you can say that it keeps security, confidentiality, and I would say that it simplifies our client code.
Okay. Yeah.
Because otherwise client, I just see, even in the hypothetical I would say that 5-10 steps, but do you think that in real how many steps would have happened internally? So client doesn't bother about all those 10 steps, right? All he wanted is like, hey, apply this, apply break, something should have happened, so this is the input, output should come to this. Client is only aware of this, I provide this input, give me this output, right? But how you will do it, I don't care. So this kind of data abstraction is we can achieve through interface and abstract, which we will see later. But at least you should be now in proper understanding what is abstraction and what are the different examples you can yourself come up with. Okay, shall I move forward?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see the second pillar. Second pillar is data encapsulation. Hey, it's look very familiar, right? Data abstraction, data encapsulation. Now let's say that it is also known as data hiding, right? So now what we are saying is we created a class, let's say class A, right? And it has properties. What properties is known as data members, data variables, or data members, data variables. And it also has functionality. Functionality is known as data methods, nothing but a methods which work on this one. So encapsulation, what does it say? That bundle the data and the code working on the data. So this class has two things, variable and the functions which work on this variable, right? So what this class is doing? This class is doing data encapsulation, right? It bundles the data and the functions which operate on this data, right, into a single unit. We can also call this as data hiding. So this is actually hiding the data. I will tell you how it hiding the data. So here, before going further, let me tell you how it hides the data. So now we know that class. Let's say I created a class called let's say car. And it's the same example, or let's say some another example. I would say that let's say some cool example. Let's say animal, some dog. This is one simple example, right? So what are the data variable or data members, or you can say that properties? Let's say is color. So let's say I have taken a string. What is the color? So this is data member or data variable, right? And I have certain method. I told you, right? We can update this through data methods which can work on this method. So it's, let's say, get color, get dog color. So this is one method which will return, simply somebody call this, it will return, okay, this is the color actually. So this is returning what? A string. And similarly I would set color. We can work on the variable through this. So what is the color we are getting? Let's say color variable, and let's say this dot color equals to color. Don't worry about this keyword, this dot, class, right? I will all come to this. So currently my motto to tell you is what is data encapsulation. This keyword is in the next class. I will tell you all the keywords, why it is required, but currently keep all these keywords into the back of mind that yes, this dot and all these things, but not needed as of now. Now understand that how it is doing encapsulation. So I have a data member color and I have a data methods which work on this variable. So I have, let's say, get method. If somebody calls this method, it will return the color, right? If somebody want to change the color, right, it can call this, let's say, pass blue color. So it will set it blue. So let's say I am creating an object. Let's say I am creating an object, dog object, dog. I am creating an object, let's say Rottweiler. Rottweiler is one of the dog breed. Let's say I am creating an object through new. So now one object is created, Rottweiler. Now I would say that here Rottweiler dot. This is an object, and this is how we call it through in the Java dot. But don't worry, I am setting the color. Set color. Let's say I set the color black. Right. So now what will happen is, you know that the object is Rottweiler. It is created from this class. So this class has color object, color variable, and methods get and set. Get and set. Get dog color, set color. It has two methods and this one. And now what I have set the color black. So currently color is set to black. Okay, so this is how objects will now have the information. But if you see that what has happened, if we have seen that we have encapsulated this info, both info, data member, which is known as variables, and the functions which work on this together into a single class. If anybody wants to change this color, they can call this method, right? If anybody wants this variable, they can call this method. So this class has the full control over this members through its functions. That's why it is known as encapsulation, means bundles the data and the code working on that data into a single unit. So now in Java, because of this classes, we bundle the data and the functions together into a single class that acts as a single unit, right? And it is also known as data hiding. Like we have hide our data. You want certain data variables, call our function, and through that you can get it. But you are not, we can allow, but we are saying that we have full control over data. It brings control. And that's why it says that with the help of this, we can bring loosely coupled code. If you remember the start, procedural programming, data moves freely. Like if you have written 10 function 1, function 2, function 3, it created data 1. Definitely function 2 can also change the data, same data 1, because it passes it, because data moves freely from all over the code. Anybody can change it. There is no control over data. But now here, because of data encapsulation, this class takes the ownership. These are the functions available. Use this function to update the variable. So it has the full control. We can bring control, and that's why it says that loosely coupled. Like everyone knows that now. Okay, loosely coupled is okay. Now they are not tightly related to each other. Highly tightly coupled means, let's say this is class 1, this is class 2, right? And there is data 1, it is also changing it, data 1 also it is changing it. So they are very tightly coupled. If something change here, this also get impacted. If something change here, this also get impacted. So these are very tightly coupled code, and this is not acceptable into the industry. We have to develop a loosely coupled code. Means, what does loosely coupled code means? You have class 1, class 2. If something got changed here, this should not get impacted. If something got changed here, this should not get impacted. They should work as an independent, different classes. So data, creating a different classes and putting the variables, members appropriately, right, helps you to bring the loosely coupled control, and it will bring a control, better control on our code. Understood it? Like, so you can add all the variables which are logically, you can say that, related into the same class, so that all these variables, it has full control over it. Data should not move freely. We can keep it in under one class. Any doubts? This encapsulation clear?
Hey, one question, Shrayansh, here. Like, suppose I create a class dog. Inside that there is a string color, and suppose I create a new class cat, suppose, and I want to access that color of dog inside this.
Definitely you can do. So how you can do is, first you need an object of this one. As you know that class is just a skeleton. So I told you that object has ultimately the data. This is just a skeleton, and this real object has the values. So first you need to create an object of this from this cat class, right? Let's say you create an object like this, right? And now you can call this Rottweiler, which we created an object, Rottweiler dot. You can say that, let's say I want a color, right? Get dog color. Rottweiler dot get dog color. You will get a color, a string. Just take this in a variable. Now use it whatever you want.
So what I'm asking is, like, by doing this I'm able to access dog class variable, right? So it is like against encapsulation.
No. So see, getting an information is okay, but now what full control is in which class? Anything you wanted of a dog. So see, understand from this way. Let me tell you with this way. I got your point, what you're trying to say. Getting an object, getting an information is requirement to run any program. So nobody is self-sufficient. Everybody need information from other class to perform certain tasks, right? Nobody can have a full functionality. So getting an information is okay, but who is taking the ownership to that particular information is what we are talking about. Let's say I have this data. Let's say I am saying that student age, courses which he has taken, right? All this thing information I have. So let's say when I would say that I have a class, or let's say when we are talking about dog and cat way itself, let's use the same example so that we don't get diverted. Okay, so now you know that let's say don't worry about this class itself. So now we are creating a class. Okay, pen. Class cat. Okay. So now in the class cat, we are saying that, okay, by creating a dog object, so let's say Rottweiler, I created a new dog object, and now I am able to create, using this object which I created, I am able to get its field, get dog color. Now I store it in some variable, let's say color of a dog color, and I do certain perform operation on top of this dog color, right? So now your point is that, hey, how come it's a data encapsulation when other class is able to get the data? This is your doubt, right? So see, the dog has this as a variable. Now class says that, okay, I need this data to perform certain work, to perform certain tasks, but I cannot take the ownership, right, to maintain this color and whatever the dog property it has, right? Who will take the ownership? Who will bundle this data? Is it let's say if you don't put in a class, let's say it has certain method, and will you pass this color as a black, let's say, then this is like a very tight couple, like, okay, somebody is sending a black color, like but this is not an object oriented programming. It's just like you are passing all the variables, right? So here just understand from this, from a class cat perspective, what does cat needed? All cat needed is this dog color information so that it can perform a certain task, but it cannot take an ownership of this maintaining this dog related fields. If there are some certain other class, let's say goat, it can also not take ownership of maintaining the properties of a dog, right? So only dog class will have the full control over it. If you want to get the color, call me, get dog color, then only you will get it. You want to update it, now you can call rot dot update. So now if you see that this Rottweiler class object which we created, right, of this one, it has the full control over it. So with this method I have the full control over it. And let's say I created this as a private, so I don't want it to tell now, it will confuse. So this is known as access specifiers. Access specifier like private, public, protected, right? So and there is one more called default. Don't worry about this, I wanted to cover in the next session. So now, but as you ask, so there are something called private and public. Let's take this for simple. Public means anybody can access, anybody, right? So it, let's say I also call this method public get dog color, right? So get dog color it can call, but now let's say I make it private. This method is now private. It will not be able to call because private is just keep into this class itself. Only within the same method can call each other, private. So don't worry about this one, but I wanted to tell you that encapsulation means all the variables and the methods are grouped together in a same class and it has full control over it. And how it controls? So here let me explain a very simple term now, the control part. But Piyush, did you get like encapsulation? What's the definition of encapsulation says?
Yeah, I got that. Like you're saying, if there is a color, it will be only modified, accessed via dog class. If someone else want to access, they have to go through that dog
Correct.
class only.
So
that's how we are hiding.
so that's why we are saying that dog class has the full control over it, full control over fields through its method. And there are something called access specifiers. So this helps them to control more. So there are 4: private, public, protected, and default. So this protected and default I will tell you later, but let me tell you this thing so that it will clarifies all the doubt. So let's say let's discuss about this 2 modifiers, private, protected. So this modifiers can be used on the data members also, data methods also. So let's say I am using private here. So if I haven't used anything, means it is default, right? I will tell you what's the, when it is default what will happen, but I want to tell you, let's say I am specifically mentioned it's a private. Now when I mention it's a private, the class cat class cannot access it like a, hey dog, when you have this, right, dog object Rottweiler dot, what is the property name? Color. It cannot access like this. It can only be accessed via method which is public. So let's say my data member is private and the method to get this color is public. So now in another class I am talking. In another class it created a Rottweiler object. Let's say it created a Rottweiler object. It created this Rottweiler object. Now from this Rottweiler object it wanted certain data. But how it can get the data? One thing is Rottweiler dot. It directly calls the variable color. But now if you see that I have made it private. Private says that data will remain in this class, cannot be accessed outside of this class. So you cannot access from the cat class. But here if you see that the method is public, so now but I can, it is open to do this. Rottweiler dot get dog color, it can call this method because this is public, anybody can call this method, and inside this method it is returning the color. So now you see that what it does, the dog class has made a full control. Hey, you cannot access the color directly, you have to call me because I am public, you can call me and I will return the color only. But if you want little bit, don't want too much harsh, let's say you want people to call directly the color itself, you can call it, you can make it public. Okay, I will also make it public. Okay, public. So now cat class will able to allow to this directly access this without even calling the methods. Okay, directly it is public. So I created the Rottweiler object, dog object, and I will say that okay, Rottweiler dot get color or color directly this. So now if you see that the dog class is doing a full control over how the other classes can access its data variables, either directly, either through method, or if I both make private, this is also private, this is also private. Other class cannot even either call this or either call this because both are private. So some method, it should have to get this data. So you got it that using access specifiers and this class, it has full control over the data.
Yeah.
Right. So see, don't worry about this private, public, protected, but I just wanted to glimpse that with the class, inside a class, when you put all the data and all the functions which operate on this data, can have full control like what other class, how it can get the data. So see, everything is all about data, Piyush. All work on a data, but it's like how you will access that data, who will have that control. So here with the help of a class, I can control everything like how other class can access the data. If I made public, yes, you can access it. If I make private, no. Inside this class only can have this thing. If certain public method is there, you can call that and ask that, hey, provide me that data. So full control is at here in the class. Got this?
Yeah.
Cool, man. So now when you are saying that, hey, explain to a 14-year-old child data encapsulation, just understand that, explain that we have a capsule, right, of medicine. So medicine has all the data actually inside the capsule, right? So this is nothing but a data encapsulation which we did. The actual data is present inside of a capsule. Capsule is just, you can say that a cover outside it which is protecting it. Similarly, in data encapsulation, class is nothing but the one which actually keeps the data, and it is just protecting it through its access identifiers, private, public, protected, default, controls it. Okay, let's move to the third pillar of OOPS, inheritance, the very very important one, inheritance. So now inheritance, देखो क्या होता है कि our parent, and we are the inherited from our parent, child. So my parent has, let's say, capability 1. So child inherit, and child has capability, let's say something new 2. But since it's a child or it's a inherited, it also possesses this capability also. मतलब उसके बाद parents के भी benefit आ जाते हैं. That's nothing but an inheritance. Capability of a class to inherit properties from the parent class. ठीक है? So this is a child class. It has the capability to inherit the properties from the parent. So parent has, let's say parent class has property, let's say I have a property called color, let's say in a dog, color. Child has, let's say, a property called age, data properties, you know, right now, data variables. So now if you see that child also now automatically has color also. So because it inherit, so whatever the parent has, child will also has. Child has its own properties, age, but it also has its parent also. Parent has color, right? So ultimately you can also access with child object color also. This property is also accessible, but opposite it not true. So if you have parent object you will not be able to access age. But if you have child object, you can access color also, parent also. Okay? It can inherit both functions and variables, so we don't have to write them again in the child classes. I told you, right? Whatever the variables and functions, two things a class can have. This child will also have variable, functions. So child will have all the functions which parent has plus all the variables which parent has. We don't have to write it again. It, if it inherited from here, it can have all this, but parent doesn't have the one. Let me tell you with an example. For example, class vehicle. I created a vehicle. A class vehicle can have, let's say, vehicle have what all the properties vehicle have is engine. Let's say, I would say that Boolean has engine. It has this variable, and let's say it has one function. Let's say get engine. It will return this variable has engine, and this is Boolean's return type. I'll tell you about this one. So let's say this is one normal class, a vehicle. It has what a certain one data variable. It has one function. A class can have only two things, variables and functions, right? Now I told you that inheritance means we are creating a child of this class. So now what I am creating is kind of this vehicle as a child class called, let's say, car. I want to create this one. How I can create? Now I can create another class. So this is another class, car. Class is car. How can I inherit? Inherit can be done through keyword extends. Don't worry about this, we'll go more deep. Extends. Kiska extends? Vehicle. Vehicle. So now with this extend keyword, we make the child as a, we make car as a child of vehicle, right? And I add it. This thing is int cc. What is the cc? 800 cc or whatever this one. Or I would say that more is like a type, petrol or diesel type, something like this. Let's say a string type. So, okay, so now car has its own type, whether it's or you can say that car type is like a hatchback, SUV, sedan. What is the car type? So, but this is its own variable, and it can have its own method also, get car type, let's say, and it will return the car type. Now what we have done is we have created a vehicle which has its own variable and functions, and we have created a car. Car is also, now we make it a child of a vehicle through keyword extends, right? So now it become a child, and car has its own variable and functions. It has its own variable and function, car type and get method. But since car is a child of vehicle, it has its access to all the variable and function. It has access to engine also, has engine, and this one. So now let's say if I created a car object, how you can create an object? So let's say I want to create this class object, this class. So car, let's say I created an object, let's say Swift, equals to new is the keyword which help us to create an object of car. So now I created a car object Swift. So now I wanted to access Swift dot. I wanted to access. If I write get engine, is it a valid or not? It is a valid, because even though get engine method is not present into the car, here it has only get car type, but get engine is there? No. But since car is a child of vehicle, vehicle has get engine, it can access it, right? But now let's say you created a vehicle object, let's say vehicle, my vehicle object equals to new vehicle. Now vehicle object, this vehicle object whichever I created, dot, let's say I'm creating get car type. Is it right or not? No, because vehicle is not inherited from car. It cannot take its properties, right? So it cannot, it doesn't have get car type. So this, it doesn't have any get car type, so it cannot access it, right? So it can only access its own one, but its child can access its one. Understood? This one, inheritance. Right? So this is known as inheritance, and there are different types of inheritance: single inheritance, multi-level, hierarchical, and multiple inheritance. Let me tell you, like in a quick manner, what are the different ones. So inheritance can be achieved through two ways, that I will tell you in the next one. So but here understand the inheritance one, the four types of inheritance, and there is some certain thing called diamond problem, which is very important. तो फोर टाइप्स के इनहेरिटेंस होते हैं. पहला है सिंगल. सिंगल मतलब ये है, मान के चलो क्लास ए, इसका मैंने चाइल्ड बनाया, इट्स नोन एज क्लास बी. दिस इज सिंगल इनहेरिटेंस. सेकंड इज मल्टी लेवल. मल्टी लेवल इज यू हैव क्लास ए, second level is your, let's say, class B, then from class B somebody extended class C, it can go on. So this is known as your multi-level. Now there is something called hierarchical, and there is something called, another is multiple. मल्टीपल. ठीक है, यहाँ पे मल्टीपल में क्या होता है कि यू हैव क्लास ए, क्लास बी, class C, it extended from both, which is not allowed in Java. It might be allowed in C++, but in Java it is not allowed. I will tell you why. Right? So here, and this is one thing called, and hierarchical is class A, class B inherited from class A, class C inherited also from class A, right? But this is not allowed. From class A and B, a C cannot have it. This is not allowed, right? Somebody, let's say, till here it is allowed, hierarchical is allowed. From one class, class B can extend class A, class C can extend class A. But in the multiple, from both the classes, this is not allowed. This is known as diamond problem. Diamond problem. So this is not allowed. There is a way through which we can get this, right? So I told you, right, with extend it cannot be done, but through interface we can do it. I'll tell you later. But see this, why this is not allowed. This is important to understand this one. Why this diamond problem is not allowed. So here, let me add a new slide. So see, understand this one, very simple to understand it, but sometimes many candidates get confused why multiple is not allowed. Class B, class C. Okay, एक example लेते हैं. Let's take one example. Class A had one method. Let's say get engine. Simple, same example, get engine. Okay. Let's say class B also has one method, get engine. Same method, but because it's a different class, right? A method can happen. Now I am creating a class C. It extends. Let's say if it present, extend from A comma B. Let's say this is not possible, but let's say if this is not allowed in Java, so it is not possible. But let's say if it is, If it is, what is the issue? Now I told you that a class, child class, has access to both parent, members and function. Now let's say I create a class C object. Class C object equals to new C. New C. Let's say I created a C class object. This is a C class object equals to new C. Now if I am creating object dot get engine, what it will do? So now this is a child class object. This is a child class object, and I called get engine. Now will it call a get engine of class A or get engine of class B? Which one it will call? It will not able to identify which class engine I have to invoke. To make this simple, Java doesn't add it itself. Right? So with the extend keyword, it cannot be done. You understand the problem? Diamond problem?
Yeah, so there is a confusion which method to call.
Which method to call? Because class child class has access to both the one. Parent के भी feature है, इसके बाद class B के भी feature है, दोनों parent है. So it also has access to get engine, it also has access to get engine. But when somebody call, hey child class C, get engine, which one to call now? Doesn't know. So this is known as diamond problem. It is not allowed. Through interface we can allow it. Through, let's say if I create a class, now not class, interface A, interface B. Now I created one class C. Now it implements. So whenever there is an interface, right, it use implements to extend. It is also a child class now, A comma B. Now this is allowed, right? But how this is allowed, we will see later. But through this one, we can do a hack on this one, because it will override functionality. So I'll tell you this later. So I'll keep this like interface. We will go detail. Otherwise, currently it will confuse you. But now understand this, with the class one, it is not possible. Diamond problem cannot be resolved. But with interface, it can be resolved. Interface also, it's a proper child only. We can call it as a child member class only. But with this, it can be solved. But I'll tell you where, because first we need to understand the overriding for it. Okay. So keep it later. When we go interface, right, I'll come to this again. But I hope currently you understand what is inheritance, what are the different types of inheritance, and why multiple inheritance is not possible. It is known as diamond problem. It cannot be solved. Through interface, it can be solved.
So Shrayansh, one question, the last example, in which we try to extend A comma B, although it is wrong, you already said. But suppose if I have that get engine in class C itself.
Then it's not an issue. Then it's not an issue, because it will ultimately call its one only. Yeah. But see, but it has a chance of issue, because class C, if it doesn't add that get engine method to itself, then means if get engine present into its parent, it will call that. Then it's an issue, right? Yeah, yes. You are right, man. So that's where now you ask this question, then I'll tell you that that's why interface, it's not an issue, because in interface you cannot implement like this. In interface you can only say that get engine, that's all. You don't implement it. So let's say this is interface A, this is interface B, get engine. You don't implement it. Now when you write class C, which is implements A comma B, both, from both. Now it has to implement. Now it will say get engine. Now it will do its implementation. So that's why with interface we should be able to do is, because with interface you cannot write, it's just a definition you provide in the interface for the method. The code implementation is not possible inside an interface. You just provide a definition. So though whichever class implements the interface, it has the responsibility to write a proper implementation of it.
got it.
right? So we will come to interface later, but yeah, but since you asked that question, because if class C implements it, it's not an issue, and that's where interface makes class C mandatory. Yeah, hey, I have defined get engine only, I haven't implemented it. Class B has also defined get engine, I haven't implemented it. But now since class C has implemented from both, so it has to implement all the methods which interface has. So it has to implement it now, get engine. So it has to implement. So ultimately, whenever object will call, it will call its only.
Yeah, because then if there is a common method also, then only we
Huh.
have only one
One
implementation.
method
That's
itself.
why.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So that's why multiple inheritance is not possible, but through interface we can solve it. And it's a diamond problem which is not supported, but through interface it's a, you can say that it's a hack. What is the advantage of inheritance? Somebody asked, like code reusability, because let's say parent has certain code which I don't want to write it again, I can reuse it. So code reusability. And another is we can achieve polymorphism using inheritance. That's why I wanted to tell. Now what happen is polymorphism through inheritance. I will tell you now. The next one is polymorphism last, right? I hope you are not overflowed with information. You are in proper in line with me, right? Uh, base is important, but this is the last one, right? I will not stretch much. So till now you are with me, right? All the pillars properly, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's come to the polymorphism. I'll tell you how inheritance helps in the polymorphism. So there are, see, poly means many, morphism means form, a same method. So let's say you have a method. A same method has the capability to take many forms. It is known as polymorphism. Let's say I have one method. Example which I have taken is a person. A person can be a father, a person can be a husband, a person can be an employee. So a person has ability to take many forms. So it's a polymorphism. Water can be liquid, solid, gas. The same thing in different forms. It is known as polymorphism. So a same method behaves differently in different situation, right? I'll tell you how it behaves differently. So there are two type of polymorphism which is very frequently asked. Method overloading, which is known as static polymorphism, also known as compile time polymorphism. With anything they can ask. Explain compile time polymorphism or static polymorphism or method overloading. And another type is method overriding or dynamic polymorphism or runtime polymorphism. So these are the different names. Now let's see. Let's say you have one class. Take it as a sum. I have a sum, right? And I have a method. Let's say get, or I will say that do sum int a comma int b. Let's say it returning the int. It return a plus b. So let's say you have a class sum, and the one of the method is do sum. It takes two variable a and b. So what it is returning, it just do sum and return. This is simple method. So now I am first telling you overloading or compile time polymorphism or static polymorphism. So what is static polymorphism or overloading is, int I write same method with same name, do sum, right? But here if you see that it differs in parameters. So this is, you can say that overloading. So here if you say that do sum, but here it is taking integer, it is taking string. This is allowed. It is known as overloading. I can write another do sum integer a comma integer b comma integer c. right? So here now I have 3. Do sum, again do sum. But here it has 2 integer, here it has 3 integers now. So here if you see that what is overloading is a same method name, but the parameter differs. Here it is taking integer, here it is taking string, but here it is again taking integer but different number. So all are different. So here it is 2, it is 3. It is known as overloading. So it's a compile time, because here at the compile time itself, Java knows that let's say somebody is calling a sum object. Let's say I'm creating an object, calc object, new sum. So I am creating a sum class object. Now I am calling one method, calc object. I am creating a calc object dot do sum. Now I am passing, let's say 5, 2. So it knows that which method to call. If I pass do sum a, b, it knows that which method to call. These are a string, it will call a string. Right? If I pass 3, 4, 2, so it knows that which method to call. So it already has all the information at the compile time itself, right? Even though the name are same, do sum, right? But it knows that, okay, whenever it has 2 integer, whenever 2 integer will come, it will pass it to this one. Whenever a string will come, it will connect to this one, right? So, but here if you see, till now it is clear what is overloading. This is known as method overloading, or static polymorphism, or compile time polymorphism.
One question, Shrayansh, like suppose if I write int do sum and then int x comma int y, just changing the name of the parameter is
No.
passing, but the type is same.
No, that is if I have x and y here, is still wrong, because now type is same.
Okay.
Right? So let's say here one example I want to tell. Let's say this is one method certain, and I am writing another method. Now I am changing the return type, string, do sum, int x comma int y, again function. So here if you say it is int x, again here it is int y, similar, method name is same, return type is different. Here it was returning integer, now here it is returning a string. It will change it to string and return. This is not allowed. On the basis of return type, overloading cannot be done. Only on the basis of parameters it can differ. On the basis of return type, it is not possible. So this is a very time interviewer asked that, is this a right way to do it or not? Overloading. Everything is same, but return type is changed. This is not allowed, because during compile time, right, it doesn't check the return type. So return type, even though are different, it doesn't bother, because it only compares while doing binding, right? While it bind, it only compare the arguments which you are going to pass. What it going to return, it doesn't check the binding on top of it. It's just check, okay, what arguments you are going to pass. See here, just see this example. So now I have two classes, two methods the same, but one is differ in the return type of int, another is differ on the return type of string. Now another class I am calling, let's say object, the same calc object dot do sum 5, 2, again do sum 5, 2, but one is returning integer, one is returning string, but it will get confused. Hey, which one to call? Do I need to call both are integer? Because on the return type it won't check, okay, are you taking it, assigning it into integer or into string? It do not check this. Okay, you are taking it into integer, I need to call this one. Okay, you are taking this into string, I need to call this one. Because many times it's possible that you don't bother about catching it. You don't bother about, hey, whatever you get, I don't worry about it, you just call it, right? So based upon this information itself, arguments both are same, it cannot determine which to invoke, right? So that's why return type it ignores, and that's why if return types only differs, it is not known as correct overloading. Okay, you got it. Compile time overloading.
Yeah.
Now let's see method overriding, which I think you already know by now because the previous question which has been asked, right? Let's say you have class A. I have a method, let's say get engine, it returning, let's say true, something. Okay? This is this method closed, this class closed. Now I am creating class B. It extends, matlab it's a child of class A. Here class B has the properties of class A, means it has access to get engine, but it also, let's say, hey, I don't want to return true, I need my own behavior. It can override it. Get engine, it overrides it, and it says that it does its own computation and say that return, based upon that computation it returns, let's say true or false, let's say false. So it changed the behavior of the parent even though method name is same and everything is same. So in the overriding, if it has integer a comma integer b, it should also have integer a comma integer b. Even the argument should be same. In method overriding, even the argument should be same, everything should be same, only the internal implementation can be differ. And now which one to call, whether this or this, that depend upon runtime. So now let's say I created an object of class B. क्लास B का ऑब्जेक्ट बनाया मैंने, let's say B obj equals to, let's say it's an object new B. I created one object of class B and I am doing B dot get engine. Which one it will invoke? Which one it will invoke? It will invoke the this engine, get engine, because it will call the method which is present inside this class. Get engine, let's say 2 integer, right? Integer a comma integer b, let's say 5 comma 2. So it will call this one. But if I create a class object of class A object A equals to new A, and I will say that okay, object A dot get engine 4 comma 2 anything. Now it will call which one? It will call this one because this is now this class object. So it will call this one. So here if you see that, so A child is B, both has same method, get engine, except exactly the same definition of a method. Return type is same, method name is same, argument type is same, exactly everything is same. Only the implementation might differ, right? But which method to call, it depend upon runtime, depending upon the object which you have created. If you have created an object of this one and you call the method, it will invoke this method. If you created an object of this class and then invoke get engine, it will call this one. This is known as dynamic. On the runtime you decide which method to call, and also known as overriding. In the overriding, even the arguments, method name, return type, everything is same. In overloading, argument type should be changed and it's in the same class. But here overriding, everything should be the same and it through like inheritance, child class A, B, and then it has the exactly same methods. Understood? Polymorphism.
So in method overriding, like as usual, so first whatever call, like method we call, it will be first looking inside the child.
No,
if it is present.
whatever object nahi, which class object you are creating. So let's say you created an object of class B. Then it first check, hey, I have this.
In B.
Yeah. Then it will call itself, right?
So yeah, so that is the procedure, right? If suppose we create a class B object, then first he will see in class B if the method is present.
Correct.
If it is missing, then he will check if it is extending from some other
Correct.
class, and then go to that if there.
Correct. You are right. Right. And overriding means this same method present into the child class also. Return type same, method name same, argument same. Only the functionality differs. Got
So
that?
in overriding, we look for the everything return type, parameter type, number of
Everything.
parameters, name.
Yeah.
But in overloading, we just check for name and different number of parameters.
Arguments.
And okay.
Types
We
or
don't
different
care
number.
of return.
Return
We
type,
don't care about return type.
right, right. So in method overloading, inside a one class, only you have two methods with the same name and different arguments or types of arguments.
Yeah,
But in
same
the
class.
method overriding, it's parent child. Inside a parent, you have same function, and in child class you also have the same function, exactly duplicate, right? And then which one to call, that depend upon runtime, which object you have, right? But in overloading, same class but something change, some argument change, because you can't have duplicate methods into the same class. Correct? So that covers the 4 pillars. Now just before going, I will tell you the relationship. It hardly take 5 minutes, but it is important. So whatever we have learned, if you see that we have covered 2 things: is a relationship, has a relationship. Very, very important part, right? So whatever the inheritance you have learned, A is a parent of B, B is a child of A, right? This is known as inheritance or is a relationship. B is a A, right? Let's say vehicle, car. So car is a child of vehicle. So I would say that it is a relationship. Car is a vehicle, right? For example, achieved through inheritance. Dog is an animal. So I have an animal. I created a dog. So I can say that dog is a animal. Inheritance form is a relationship. Okay. So whenever somebody asks, hey, can you tell me is a relationship? What do you understand by this? Means nothing but an inheritance. So means indirectly they are asking you about inheritance. Okay. Tell that. Now second is has a relationship. Has a relationship means hey, Aman, you are very late. Okay. So now has a relationship means you created a class A. Now let's say you have another class B. Right? So in the class A itself, you has the object of class B. So let's say class A has what? What 2 things class A has? Data variables and data methods. Data variables and data methods. So data variables, like it has, let's say, integer x, and it also has object of this one. So it has, let's say, class B B object, B class object. So this is also a variable. Means instead of primitive like say integer, it has the object of this one. So has a relationship says that whenever an object is used in another class, so object of class B is present into class A. So I can say that class A has class B. So class A has object of class B, right? So it can be one-to-one relation, one-to-many, many-to-many. For example, student and course. This is class course. This is class, excuse my spellings, handwriting, class student, class course. So I told you that has a relationship can have one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. So right, let's say a student can have one course, right? Let's say it has taken one course. So I have an object here, course. Let's say I have some English. So a student can have one course. So it's a one-to-one. One-to-many. One-to-many. A student has list of course. List of course. So it will have, let's say, list here now. Course list. It can have English, Hindi, right? Maths. It has a list of course. Got it? So student has, if one course, one object of a course, it has one-to-one. If a student, one to many means student has many courses, list of courses, one to many. And another is important is many to many. So now here if you see that a student has list of courses, but a course, let's say if it's an English course, it has a list of students. A one English course can be taken by many students. So it does also have a list of students. So here if you say that a student has many courses, one student can have many courses. Similarly, a one course, let's say English, can have many students, right? So has a relationship means one class has an object of another class, right? It is known as has a relationship, and has a relationship could be one to one, one to many, many to many. Take this example, a bike has an engine. If you created a bike class and you have another engine class, so you create in bike के अंदर we can create an engine object. Bike has an engine object. School has a class. School has a student. You got it? What is has a relationship? Whenever inside a particular class you have an object of another class. It is also known as data member, data variable, but it is an object of another class. It is known as has a relationship. You understand has a relationship?
Yeah. So, like, does it depends only on classes or
Classes.
even in methods?
Classes, only classes objects.
Okay.
Okay, so now
I was thinking one thing, like main method always have lot of class instantiation. Oh, there it, but that is a method.
No, that is a method. So it's all I'm talking about the class. So class A
Okay.
has, so this is a data variable itself, like integer age, right? Similarly, it has a variable also, this one. So now see this has a relationship is of two type. Again, very important guys, this बहुत ज़्यादा इंटरव्यू में आएगा ये एग्रीगेशन एंड कंपोजिशन. ये लास्ट है, इसको बोलते हैं अपन वीक रिलेशन, इसको बोलते हैं स्ट्रॉन्ग रिलेशन. मतलब क्या है, मैं आपको इसको डेफिनेशन पढ़ने से बताता हूँ कि नाउ यू हैव टेकन लेट्स से स्टूडेंट और लेट्स से स्कूल का एक क्लास है, एंड देन यू हैव student has one class. A school has many students. It has list of student object. Let's say student. It has list of student object. But now let's say it has a relationship because one class has an object of another class. But now let's say one thing got destroyed. Let's say a student got destroyed. This class I deleted it. Will school will get deleted? No. Right? School will both are, it's that's why it is called weak relationship. If any one is removed, another thing will not get removed. Right? Both object can survive independently, means ending of one object will not end another object. If I destroyed school, will student will get destroyed also? No. Students will enroll to some other school. But this school destroyed, both are independent. Right? Similarly, just take an example that school classes or rooms, school rooms. Now let's say if I destroyed school, definitely room will also get destroyed. Let's say room has 100 rooms, school has 100 rooms. If I destroyed school, definitely rooms will also get destroyed. So they are strongly related. Ending of one object will end another object. You got it?
Hey, one question. Like you said, in school you have list of students. Okay, in weak relationship, and you remove students from school. It won't impact school.
Correct. So school later will can have another students future, but school will still be present, but it's an empty.
So suppose I create an object of school, and there I try to access this list of students. So what will happen?
It will be empty. Let's say empty, no students. And list would be empty.
But that, like, suppose that list has inside that we are creating an object of the student. Right?
Okay, so you are creating if object is not even present.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. We can remove that thing, but school is not destroyed.
Yeah, school is not destroyed, but won't that give any error because we are trying to access a class called student which is not present now.
Okay, so see this one. Now, okay. see with this simple example, there are, let's say, 100 students.
Okay.
If you remove 5 students, will school get destroyed? No.
No.
Right? If definitely I think your question is, if you definitely delete this class itself, student class,
Yes.
definitely
Yes.
you have to change it, because there will be otherwise compilation error, right?
Yeah.
But I am saying is, let's say you have 100 students. Out of 100 students, if you destroyed even 99 students, or even all 100 students, you destroyed the objects. But you have a class, but you destroyed all the objects. A school will not get deleted. But let's say you have a school and rooms. Now in a particular, when you create a school object, then you create rooms, right? Okay, I have created school A. The school A has 4 rooms. I created another school B. School B has 10 rooms. Now if I destroy this object, this 4 classes will automatically get destroyed also. If I
Yeah.
destroy this object, now I'm talking about object. If I destroy this object, this whatever the classes which I have, rooms which I have created, that will also get destroyed. But if you destroy the class itself, then definitely there would be compilation error for sure, if somebody has the reference. Okay, but
Yeah,
understand,
that was the question.
it's all talking from the object perspective. If removing of one object impacts other, it's a strong, has a relationship. If removing of one object doesn't impact the other, it is a weak, has a relationship. Weak relationship known as aggregation, strong is known as composition. Okay, got it guys?